The machines were running. The building had been empty for years. A security guard named Fuji was called to an old factory. The factory had been closed for 5 years. Neighbors reported sounds of machinery late at night. Fuji entered with a flashlight and his radio. The factory floor was vast and dark and silent. Dust was thick on every surface, cobwebs everywhere. Fuji swept his flashlight across rows of idle machines. Then he heard it, a low mechanical hum. From deep in the back of the factory. He walked toward the sound slowly. At the far end, 3 machines were running. Metal grinding against metal, belts turning. Everything moving as if the factory had never closed. But there was no power to the building. It had been cut. Fuji radioed for backup and stood his ground. His partner arrived. Together they approached the machines. By the time they reached them, the machines had stopped. Still, silent, as if they had never moved. The machines were coated in years of dust. But on one machine's control panel, no dust. A clean handprint, fresh, pressed into the metal. No fingerprints, just the clean shape of a palm. Someone, or something, had started those machines. Where they had gone and what they had wanted, unknown. The factory was demolished the following year. Fuji did not stay to see it taken down. What ran those machines that night was never identified. The next story is about something standing on the factory floor. It looked like a worker, but it was not a person. An urban explorer named Shinji documented this on video. He entered an abandoned stamping factory outside Osaka. The building had been closed for over a decade. He moved through the ground floor filming everything. Rusted presses, stacked crates, broken skylights. Halfway across the floor he stopped. A figure stood beside one of the presses. It was the height and shape of a person. It wore what looked like a factory uniform. Its head was slightly bowed over the press. As if inspecting it, as if it was still working. Shinji called out. The figure did not respond. He walked closer. 10 meters. 5 meters. The figure still did not move or acknowledge him. He reached out to touch its shoulder. His hand passed through it. Not through fabric, through nothing. Nothing was there. But his camera had captured the figure clearly. He reviewed the footage on site. It was there on screen. A figure in overalls standing at the press. When he extended his hand, the figure did not react. His hand entered the space where it stood. And the figure simply continued to stand there. A worker still at his post, still doing a job. In a factory that closed 10 years ago. What it was, human or otherwise, was never determined. It wore human form, but it was not human. The next story is about shifts that repeat without end. The alarm sounds at 6. The night shift begins again, always. Residents near the old textile factory began complaining. Every night at exactly 6, an alarm would sound. Then machinery, then voices, low and indistinct. The factory had been closed for 15 years. A local journalist investigated and went inside. At exactly 6 in the evening, she heard the alarm. A loud factory bell, from inside the building. Then the sound of machinery starting up around her. She could not see anything moving. All was still. But the sound was undeniable, machines running, workers talking. Footsteps crossing the floor around her. She stood in the center of invisible activity. The sounds continued for 4 hours, a full shift. At 10, a bell rang again. The sound stopped. Silence returned. She was alone in the dark building. She interviewed former workers who had worked there. The night shift ran from 6 to 10 every day. For 30 years the factory ran that same shift. Until the closure. But the shift did not stop. The closing of the factory stopped the workers. But not the shift itself. The night shift still runs. Every night at 6. Machinery, voices, footsteps, for 4 hours. Then silence at 10. Then nothing until 6 again. Repeating, every single night, without stop. No worker to clock out, no foreman to dismiss. Just the shift, running on its own, forever. The next story is about a section of the factory that never existed. The blueprints show 2 wings. I was inside the third. A demolition crew foreman named Takahashi told this story. His crew was hired to tear down an old packaging plant. The building had 2 official sections, Wing A and Wing B. Takahashi did a preliminary walkthrough to assess the job. At the back of Wing B he found a doorway. Beyond it was a long corridor and another large room. A third wing, machine still inside, intact. He photographed everything and checked his building plans. No third wing on any version of the blueprints. The city records showed only 2 registered wings. No permit had ever been issued for a third section. He returned the next morning with his full crew. The doorway at the back of Wing B was a solid wall. No door, no corridor, no third wing. Takahashi checked his photos from the day before. The photos of the interior showed only wings A and B. The shots he had taken inside the third wing, blank. White. As if the camera had malfunctioned. Takahashi had the exterior walls measured precisely. The building was exactly the size of 2 wings, no more. There was no physical space for a third wing to exist. Yet he had walked through it, touched the machines. He had been in a space that should not be there. A section of the factory that existed outside of normal space. Outside of time. Accessible only once. The factory was demolished the next week without incident. Takahashi never found where Wing C went. The final story is about a colleague who was already dead. We learned later he had died on the factory floor 6 months before. A maintenance worker named Ogawa started at a new factory. On his first day he met another maintenance worker. The man introduced himself as Suzuki from the night team. He showed Ogawa around the plant and explained the systems. Suzuki was experienced and knew every machine by name. He showed Ogawa which valves to check, which belts to watch. Ogawa found him helpful and easy to work with. After his first week, Ogawa mentioned Suzuki to his supervisor. He really helped me settle in. Great trainer. The supervisor looked at him with an odd expression. Suzuki? There is no one named Suzuki on the night team. Ogawa described the man. The supervisor went pale. He asked Ogawa to wait and left the room. He returned with a laminated employee badge. The photo on it was the face of the man Ogawa knew as Suzuki. This man died here 6 months ago. A machine malfunctioned on the night shift. He was alone. Ogawa stared at the badge and said nothing. The man who had trained him was dead. Had been dead before Ogawa ever set foot in the factory. Suzuki had spent a week training the new maintenance worker. Passing on what he knew, making sure the work continued. Even after death, he had not left his post. He had stayed to do what a good worker does. He had made sure someone knew how to take care of his machines. Ogawa still works at that factory. He maintains the machine Suzuki taught him to love. And sometimes, late at night, he thinks he hears a familiar voice.